Operation Peacemaker. Today we're going to do more verses than we've been doing the previous weeks. We're in Matthew 5 and we're doing verses 9 to 16. And I'm calling it Operation Peacemaker. This is the final part of our Law of the New Street series, yeah? This is part 6. Okay, we've had a series of things that Jesus has taught where he's correcting people's minds from their law of the street, what we grow up with learning, and then the law of the new street, what Jesus wants people to do who are going to be in his kingdom. And if you remember, we had, the first thing was looking at our attitude to sin. And the next thing was having meekness, which is a natural result of having the right attitude towards sin. You're not going to be proud. And then you got building up your spiritual appetite, hungering and thirsting for righteousness. Then you got being merciful to people. And then last week we had having a pure heart. Now, hopefully, by studying these things, all your lives have been changed. If they haven't, then come and talk to me afterwards, because something's going wrong, either at my end or at your end, and we're going to have to look at it. I've found this stuff Jesus is teaching to be life-changing, and I feel like every week I'm just working up the spiritual muscles, developing in new areas. And it's all for a reason, because Jesus has got a mission to put us on, and it's Operation Peacemaker. So we're going to look at that mission now. We're going to see why it's the last thing that Jesus says in this little series here of what they call the Beatitudes, which is a funny word, but it's the blessed verses, okay? So it starts off with verse 9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Now that's very nice, but what is a peacemaker? Probably think of United Nations. I was just chatting to a guy 5 minutes ago who was chatting about peacemakers, and a lot of people think it's just about, yeah, love everyone, that just accept everyone, bring everyone together, that's a peacemaker. Now the Greek word, right, according to Bauer, right, irenapoios, it means to endeavor to reconcile persons who have disagreements. It's kind of obvious. A peacemaker reconciles people who have disagreements. Now, we could think, aha, we just got to go around on Saturday night and reconcile everyone. You know, go in a pub down the Winstanley, go in a Highwayman down the Alton, and start trying to stop people stabbing one another and shooting people. That is not actually what it means. When Jesus talks about peace, he's not talking about that kind of peace. Check it out, Matthew 10, verse 34 to 36. Do not think that I came to bring peace on the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I came to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's enemies will be the members of his household. Now, it seems a contradiction. One minute Jesus is saying, blessed are the peacemakers. Next minute he's saying, I didn't come to bring peace. But when we look in the context, we see it doesn't contradict one another. We got this bit here. This is talking about not having peace between people you know because you become a Christian. And a lot of people here have experienced that. You become a Christian and suddenly your mum takes issue with you, or your dad takes issue with you. They don't like the fact you become a Christian. They might even tell you you've joined a cult. And so in a way, when we become a Christians, oh, we're not making peace, because suddenly we cross the line and people don't like it. But when Jesus says, blessed are the peacemakers, he's talking about people who have a disagreement with God being reconciled. And when you look at it that way, you can see that these don't contradict one another, because we're talking about two different kinds of peace here. So remember our definition? A peacemaker reconciles persons who have disagreements. Okay? Now, we're enemies of God. We have a major disagreement with God as human beings. And a peacemaker will endeavor to reconcile that difference. Let's look at this. Romans 5:10. This is what Paul writes. For if when we were God's enemies, we were reconciled to him through the death of his Son, how much more, having been reconciled, shall we be saved through his life? So, man is enemies to God. But that's why Jesus died, so that we could be reconciled to him. That's where the peacemaking comes in. It's where man accepts God's sacrifice, and then he's at peace with God. So a peacemaker is someone who tells people about this reconciliation that's available to them. And that's what I was trying to tell a friend of mine a few minutes ago, is that is what true peace is. And if you think about it, the only way we have peace in the world right now would be if everyone actually came to Jesus. And that's the way we have peace. That's the way that in New Testament times, some Jewish people could have peace with Gentiles. It was when they became Christians. Apart from that, they hated one another. And if the church had got it right years ago, there wouldn't have been any racism. But the church didn't get it right, unfortunately. But biblical principles show us that we get peace when we all come to Jesus. So, that's what a peacemaker is. Now, why are peacemakers blessed? Why does it say, blessed are the peacemakers? It tells us in verse 9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. Now, to understand this better, we can go back to that same text we was looking at a minute ago in Matthew 10. Matthew 10, verse 32. This is deep. Jesus says, therefore, everyone who confesses me before men, I will also confess him before my Father who is in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, I will also deny him before my Father who is in heaven. And if you've got your Bibles open, you can see the next verse is the one I just read out. Do not think I came to bring peace on the earth. I didn't come to bring peace, but a sword. So it's all in context here. So, he says, therefore, whoever confesses me before men, the NIV translates it as acknowledge, whoever acknowledges me. If we look at the Greek word, homologeo, it means to acknowledge something. And Bauer says, ordinarily you use this of acknowledging something in public. It's not like at home with your door shut, saying, yes, Jesus, I believe in you. And then out on road, acting like a complete non-Christian, like a complete hood rat, and no one would have any idea that you're saved. It's actually doing it in public. And it also means a profession of allegiance. A profession of allegiance. Now, this isn't a new concept to us because we all profess allegiance to things every day. A lot of us right now are professing allegiance to Nike, maybe Adidas, maybe New York. You know, we do it from day. You start, you know, when some kids these days, before they're even old enough to know, they're all dressed up in a Nike tracksuit. You know, I know a friend of mine bought his kid his £100 tracksuit. The kid was about that tall. Like walking like this fast down Danebury Avenue with his dad holding his hand. His dad was really like, yeah, he's got Nike tracksuit. He's professing allegiance to Nike. Okay, probably really people are professing allegiance to the street, but Nike's the way people do that. So we're all used to the idea of professing allegiance to something. It might be a style of clothes you wear to let people know that you're from a certain group. Or it might be certain language you say to let people know. It might even be that when you're in a meeting, you start using certain power words that you wouldn't normally use to try and let people know that you're clued up. That's professing allegiance to a certain culture. And Jesus says that we've got to profess our allegiance to him publicly. So, Jesus wants us to do that, and if we do that, according to Matthew 10:32, what will Jesus do for us? He will acknowledge us before the Father. So we profess our allegiance out on road, and then Jesus in heaven professes his allegiance to us in front of God the Father. That is big. That completely changes your mindset for when you're chatting to someone on the street and you think, shall I drop in Jesus in this conversation or shall I just keep quiet? Then you think, hang on a minute, Jesus will actually acknowledge me before God the Father. That's serious things. I want that. I want to be acknowledged in front of the Father. It's like, will you put in a good word for me, Jesus? I want that. Now, this verse, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. This is how we're called sons of God. It's by Jesus professing us to the Father. Jesus confessing us to the Father, rather. That's why we're blessed. Because when we go out and we make peace, we tell people about Jesus Christ, Jesus will acknowledge us to the Father, and we are called sons of God. It doesn't mean Yeah, people out on road will call you sons of God. Wonderful. How is that a blessing? You know, it really doesn't make any difference in my life if the people playing football there say, oh, I know that guy's a son of God. It'd be nice, but it doesn't really bless me. But having Jesus acknowledge me to God the Father, that is a blessing. Who remembers what blessed means? Come on. It's not that early. What's that? Favored. Yeah. Fortunate and favored by God. That's what blessed means. Okay, now there's a flip side to this, which is Matthew 10:32. If you've got your Bibles open, you can see it. You might remember it. Sorry, verse 33. But whoever denies me before men, I will also deny him before my Father who is in heaven. Okay, that's the flip side, when you deny Jesus. But we're not going to study that now, because we'll be doing that in a few weeks. So we won't go there, but I just want to make you aware of that flip side. So, the application is, don't think that it's too hard to profess your allegiance to Jesus. Because we've all been doing it with the clothes we wear and all kinds of stuff. Right? So there's lots of ways we can do it. One is to drop Jesus in conversation. Just put the J word in there somehow. It's easy if you try. I'm singing a song. It is easy. Just drop it in there. First time you do it might feel a bit weird, then you get used to it. The other thing is wearing clothes or apparel that says something about Jesus. That is proper easy to do. Don't get it twisted. People don't think you're a nutter. You won't creep people out. I wear stuff like this all the time. I haven't seen anyone creeped out yet. When you start thinking that, that's Satan whispering in your ear hole. Some of the things I see people wearing on their t-shirt. I see kids walking around with pictures of guns on their shirts. You know, so I've got every right to walk around wearing this. But the other thing is to pray for boldness, like they've done in the book of Acts. Just keep praying for boldness. The Holy Spirit will give you boldness, and you'll find it easier to tell people about Jesus. We're not going to try and do it in our own strength. We want to do it with God's help. So, when we start professing Jesus, there's something that's inevitable, which is called persecution. But Jesus says you're blessed in persecution. Blessed in persecution. Check it out. Verse 10 of Matthew 5. Blessed are those who have been persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So it says, if you're persecuted, then you get the kingdom of heaven. Now, anyone remember what the kingdom of heaven is? Studied it just before Christmas. Okay, let's have a look at it. Kingdom of heaven is where Jesus rules. Kind of obvious. If you've got a king in his kingdom, the king rules in his kingdom. Right? So the kingdom of heaven is where Jesus rules. And there's three main divisions that we're looking at when we study the book of Matthew. First, you've got Jesus rules in people's lives who've accepted Jesus. So when you accept Jesus, he rules in your life. As a consequence of Jesus ruling in your life, you will get persecuted. Jesus said that. The next thing is the realm in which Jesus defeats evil and saves sinners. And that's not really, in this context, that's not really what we're looking at. The next one is the future reign of Jesus when he comes back to the earth and begins his millennial reign. You don't want to miss that. Jesus is coming back. We don't want to miss that. We want to be around for that. Now, when you're persecuted, Jesus says you're blessed because you realize, hey, I'm part of this. The fact I'm getting persecuted shows me that Jesus is ruling in my life and that I'm going to be involved in Jesus' future kingdom. And I'm looking forward to that. That's why you're blessed if you're persecuted. So what Jesus wants to get his disciples doing is to start thinking long term. Instead of thinking, oh, I got my windows smashed in, or someone just made fun of me. Instead think, yeah, I'm in the kingdom. This is the sign that I'm in the kingdom. So be happy about it. Be happy when people insult you. And that's a strange concept. Be happy when people insult you. Someone like Dr. Phil could make loads of money out of this one here. Could do a whole book on it. Check it out. Matthew 5:11. Blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward in heaven is great. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Now, law of the street in London is that if someone murks you, if someone insults you, someone does anything to you, you get them back. And what I was told when I was growing up is that you got to get them back worse than they got you. You got to get them back to the point that they're never coming after you again. That's the law of the street. And the people that Jesus is chatting to are grown up with a very similar concept. eye for eye, a tooth for tooth. But then who judges how much an eye is worth? Because often someone goes further, they take 2 eyes for 1 eye. They take 3 teeth instead of just 1. And Jesus is saying, nah. Instead, you've got to allow those things that happen, and you've got to rejoice and be glad. Crazy concept. Now, we get insulted every day. How often do we rejoice and be glad? Sorry, I didn't put the rest of the verse up there. He says, the reason why we rejoice and be glad is because we got a reward. We're rewarded when these things happen to us. Now, me and Shay have been in a lot of dodgy situations. It's interesting how me working, doing outreach in Roehampton, as a single man, I didn't seem to get too much bother. Did get in a couple of dodgy situations. I found that doing a prayer walk on your own isn't always the best idea. And then getting married, suddenly you're like, whoa, what's going on? Shay's phoning me up, someone's trying to kick the door down. I'm quickly running down Danbury Avenue trying to get to where Shay is in time. Loads of situations like that. And things like that is annoying, and it can make you angry. But what Jesus tells us is we actually got to, at the end of the day, when you're having your cup of tea and trying to calm down, to rejoice and say, thank God, I just got a reward. Yeah? So those people that have been harassing you, you're like, oh, thank God, I just got a reward in heaven. You know? And I've applied this in my own life, and I can tell you it does make a difference. 1 minute you're thinking, oh, I'm going to, you know, and all these old ideas are coming up about what you could do to them, and then you're like, hang on a minute, I'm being rewarded for this. Yeah, get in. That's what Jesus is trying to teach us. We get rewarded. That's why we can rejoice and be glad. So, whilst we're speaking of rewards, did you know that back in these times, soldiers sometimes got paid in salt? Anyone know that? Salt was a valuable commodity back then. And sometimes there's records of soldiers being paid in salt. Now, I wouldn't be too chuffed about that. You know, where I work is quite difficult. And if at the end of the month, this guy turned up from Data Post or whatever and had a big bag of salt and said, we couldn't pay you any money this week, I would be pretty mad. But salt was valuable then, and that's what we're going to look at now. We're going to look at what Jesus says about salt. Be prepared to go deep now. Okay? Matthew 5, verse 13. You are the salt of the earth. If the salt has become tasteless, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. Now, you guys have got an option when you're studying the Bibles. You can open up a commentary and see what some guy has an opinion on what it means, or you can open up a concordance or some Bible software and do a search for every time you see that word mentioned. And that's what I've done. Did a search for the word salt. Okay, that's all you got to do. You don't need other people to tell you what the Bible means. The Bible is its best own commentary. Now, you look up the word salt. This is one of the verses you get. Colossians 4, verse 5 to 6. Conduct yourselves with wisdom towards outsiders, making the most of the opportunity. Let your speech always be with grace, as though seasoned with salt, so that you will know how you should respond to each person. I think all this talk of salt is making my mouth dry. Now, here we're seeing salt in the context of grace when you're talking to non-Christians. He says you're talking to outsiders, and he says, let your speech always be with grace as though seasoned with salt. So here we're seeing salt linked to grace that is available to non-Christians. Can everyone remember that? Okay? This is grace in the context of talking to non-Christians. Now we're going to look at another verse. Leviticus 2:13. I know a lot of you have been reading this in the week. Favorite book of most people. Every grain offering of yours, moreover, you shall season with salt, so that the salt of the covenant of your God shall not be lacking from your grain offering. With all your offerings you shall offer salt. So here, salt symbolizes a covenant with God. Everyone got that? Salt now is symbolizing a covenant with God. Hopefully you can see a bit of a link. Now, next verse. Oh, sorry. Someone just cough if you see I forget to put the next verse up there. Numbers 18:19. All the offerings of their holy gifts, which the sons of Israel offer to the Lord, I have given to you and your sons and your daughters with you as a perpetual allotment. It is an everlasting covenant of salt before the Lord to you and your descendants with you. So here, salt signifies an everlasting covenant. Everyone with me so far? Okay, this is very salty. What we can see, right? 3 things we're seeing about salt here is that salt is grace communicated to non-Christians. That was from Colossians, okay? Grace communicated to non-Christians. The next thing was from Leviticus, which is that salt was speaking of a covenant. And then in Numbers, we got more specifically an everlasting covenant. Okay, an everlasting covenant. Now, this is important because you can just think, yes, salt is a preservative, we're preserving the world, yeah. But try to find a verse that says about salt preserving the world in the Bible. I couldn't find one. So I couldn't preach that. I just got to go by what the Bible's saying. And the Bible's deep because it all links in. If Jesus uses a term, there's a reason for it. And when you cross-reference it with Scripture, you'll see it all adds up. The Bible don't contradict itself. That's one of the proofs that it is the inspired Word of God. 66 different books that all agree with one another. So this is salt. Now, God had commanded the Israelites to sprinkle their offerings and sacrifices with salt as a sign of his everlasting covenant. And so we've seen salt is an everlasting covenant. And some of you might be thinking, that's great, D, but what is a covenant? Don't worry. We're there now. Covenant. Okay? Now the Hebrew word, and I'm not going to front, I do not know Hebrew. I'm going to try and pronounce the word they use there for covenant, beriath. Now in the Brown Driver Briggs dictionary, they have the word covenant here, meaning alliance, pledge, and treaty. Okay? So with salt, you've got an everlasting alliance with God. Does everyone get that? An everlasting covenant is an everlasting alliance. Or you could say an everlasting treaty. Now, when you hear words like alliance and treaty, what do you think of? Anyone? War and politics, yeah. Right, now, I don't know if you know this, but in World War II, we were at war with the Russians to start off with. We was at war and we hated the Russians. And then the Russians switched and they made an alliance with us. And suddenly we were fighting with the Russians. They made an alliance with us. And what the Bible shows us is that we can make an alliance with God. That's what a covenant is. When you think of covenant, think of an alliance that you make with God. It's like a treaty. You're no longer at war with God. So, just see the link now between salt and peacemakers. If you don't, get the DVD later. Now, man's at war with God. We've done that, right? God has a peace treaty, an alliance agreement that people can sign up to. But how can they sign up to it if no one tells them about it? It's impossible. Imagine a king, right, that's fighting this small country. And in the end, the king decides, you know what? I don't really want to destroy him. I'm going to send peace envoys out. So he gets Reese and he gets Carl. And he says, you guys are peace envoys. Go to this country. Tell them that I've got some terms. If they start doing these terms, I'll leave them alone. And I'll make an alliance with them. So off you go. Now, Carl and Reese walk out of the palace. And then they go in a kebab shop. Or they go in favourite chicken. And they don't go. And they're like, nah, allow that. Chicken's good. It's cold outside. It's warm in here. Right? Now, later, the king is like, this country still haven't done the terms I gave them. I'm going to completely wipe them out now. Now, that country could turn back to the king and say, oi, aren't you like going to give us some kind of peace treaty we can sign? And the king could say, yeah, I've done that. And they'd be like, we never got it. And it would be because the envoys, the peace envoys, never went and done their job. And in the same way, when we don't profess our allegiance to Jesus out on the street, when we don't tell people we meet about this wonderful alliance that they can make with God, then we're being a rubbish peace envoy. and we're not doing Operation Peacekeeper. So that's what being salty is. Salty is about telling people about this wonderful alliance you can have with God. And it comes from the fact that you've got it going on in your own life, that every day you're like, wow, I've been saved from hell by Jesus. I want to tell other people about it. And people should be able to pick that up, that you're a guy that every day is like, I'm alive. It's amazing. You know, you see guys when they've just come out of prison, they've got that big smile on their face, unless they're just about to do someone. And they got a big smile on their face, and they're happy they're out of prison, and you know it. Now, sometimes you didn't even know you was away, and you're like, what are you smiling about? And they're like, oh, I've been away, haven't I? And that's how we should be every day as Christians, that people are like, wow, there's something about him, like he's just come out of jail or something. And it's like, mate, it's better than that. I've been saved from hell. Praise God. So, first off, we have to live it out. We need to have this covenant relationship going on with Jesus. We need to show it visible to other people, and then we need to tell other people about it and say, oi, bruv, do you realize this is available to you as well? You can have the same alliance with God. There's nothing special about me. You can do exactly the same thing as me. Because that's why the world is bad. The world is tasteless because it don't have salt. You can try and fix up all the world's problems, but if people don't come into alliance with God, the world is going to be messed up. That's why, although we think it's really cool to do social outreach, we make sure when we do social outreach, we give the people the gospel as well at the same time. So, and it's cool, you can do the social thing first and then give them the gospel. Nothing wrong with that. But if we don't give them the gospel, we're just giving a poor starving person a meal before they go to hell. And that ain't being salty. Now, something that's very important, we can lose our salt. Losing your saltiness. Matthew 5:13. Jesus says, you are the salt of the earth. And by the way, it's commonly agreed Jesus is chatting to his disciples at this point, okay? You are the salt of the earth. If the salt has become tasteless, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. Now that word tasteless, morino, okay? Freiberg, in his Greek lexicon, he says, the seasoning effect of salt, of the seasoning effect of salt, lose its strength, become tasteless. Now check this out. Metaphorically become ineffective. Okay? Tasteless, metaphorically, means to become ineffective. And I bet every one of us in this room has experienced that at some time in our life. Just like, boy, I am ineffective. So I'm not saying this like, if anyone's ineffective, get out. It's like, no, this happens to all of us. We find ourselves getting ineffective. The way it happens is when we're not telling people about God's grace, and normally that comes from when we're not appreciating it ourselves, about God's grace. And it's important to know this because, well, first let me tell you, back in those days, when people had salt that became tasteless, what they would do is they would throw it outside, but they would throw it in the street, which is why Jesus says, trampled under the foot by men, and they wouldn't throw it on the vegetation. They wouldn't throw it on the grass, because if they did, it would kill everything that was growing there. Now that's important because these days there's a lot of Christians, and I'd even go further, and I say there's a lot of missionaries who are like that, and they go out to the vegetation and they kill everything that's there. I've seen it. I've seen the work of Jesus undone by Christians in the name of being a missionary. And so this is an important point because it shows us if we're not salty, then we better not reach out to certain people. And a question that I would ask to any missionary is, not in a judgmental way, but it's just, what are you going to give those people? What are you going to pass on to them? Because there's been too many instances where people have passed on something bad and it's killed up any vegetation there was. So Hudson Taylor used to say, unless you're prepared to walk blamelessly, don't come on a mission field. Now, he was a guy who needed missionaries, needed them bad. He'd take 100 people on a boat to China, only 50 would make it. You would die on the boat from all the diseases. So you'd think he'd want as many people as possible, but he'd say, if you can't walk blamelessly on a mission field, don't want you getting on the boat. I think that's a good principle. So sometimes we need to say, you know what, I'm going to stop with ministry for a minute. I'm going to stop trying to look out to other people, and I'm going to get back on track with what Jesus wants of my own life. And the way we do that is looking at the things he said, the law of the new street, your attitude to sin, being poor in spirit, mourning over your sin, being meek about it, hungering for righteousness, those things. And when you get those things right, then you're focusing so much on God's grace that then you get salty. And then you can say, right, I'm going to start doing outreaches again and that kind of stuff. So, Jesus says you could be trampled out, and check out Revelation 3:16. Jesus warned the church there, because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of your mouth. So, we studied that last summer, so we won't go into that now. But it's just a little warning there. Now, there's a guy called Clark, a famous commentator. He wrote this, talking about whether it's possible for salt to lose its saltiness, because some people say salt never loses its chemical properties. And then other people say, well, yeah, it doesn't lose its chemical properties, but you will actually find that it doesn't taste of salt anymore because whatever, I don't understand it. But this guy says that this is possible in the land of Judea. We have proof from Mr. Maundrell, who, describing the Valley of Salt, speaks thus. Along on one side of the valley towards Jebul, there is a small precipice about 2 men's lengths, occasioned by the continual taking away of the salt. And in this you may see how the veins of it lie. If you didn't understand that, don't worry. But please understand the next bit. I broke a piece of it, of which that part that was exposed to the rain, sun, and air, and thought it had the sparks and particles of salt. So he breaks a piece of salt off, the bit that's on the outside exposed to the sun and the wind and the rain. Yet it had perfectly lost its savour. The inner part, which was connected to the rock, retained its savour, as I found by proof. Okay, so what he's saying is that there's all this salt there on the rock, and on the outside bit of it, he picks it up, it's got no taste. But when he goes to the bit inside that's right next to the rock, that's got taste. So you see, Jesus was deep. I mean, Jesus made the world, so he knows how things work. And he knows that if you're close to the rock, the salt will keep its saltiness. So it's pretty obvious, isn't it? Stay close to Jesus, you'll keep your saltiness. If you're exposed to the sun, wind, and rain too much, you'll lose it. In other words, if you're out on the street too much. I've seen a street outreach that ends up just being street. I've seen club outreach that ends up being club. I've seen pub outreach that ends up being pub. The way you keep it outreach is what happens in your heart with you and Jesus, being close to Jesus. That's how you keep it outreach. Now, we're going to move from salt to light. Matthew 5:14. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Now, that guy I mentioned a minute ago called Clark, he says that the most respected rabbis, which by the way in plural is rabbins, but if I said that, you'd all think it was a bit weird. The most respected rabbis were called the light of the world. And here, Jesus is correcting people's law of the street and saying, nah, you, my disciples, are the light of the world. And the way, light, Jesus said he's the light in John 8:12. Then Jesus spoke to them saying, I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in the darkness, but will have the light of life. So we get the light from Jesus, so we don't walk in the darkness anymore. And the idea is then that other people see our light. So Jesus doesn't want us to hide the light. Okay? I want you to remember this. You are enlightened to enlighten others. That's why Jesus put his light in you, to enlighten others. Okay? 5:14. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. 15. Nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket. Okay? You wouldn't turn on a lamp in your house and then get the laundry basket and put it over it. There's just no point. No point. And in the same way, if we become a Christian, we get the light and then we hide it from everyone else, we're doing the same thing. We're just putting a laundry basket over our bedside lamp. It's ridiculous. Jesus has enlightened all of us to enlighten other people. So, got to make sure we don't hide our light. And here's some ways we can hide our light. First, being quiet when we should speak. I did this a week ago. I'm still gutted about it. Don't be quiet. Make the most of every opportunity. Next, going along with the crowd. These days, in the age of political correctness, it's very easy to want to go along with the crowd. You know? And I would just say, go for it, you know? You see what's happening at the moment around the world? You know, there's people at Regent Street demanding the execution of certain people right now. And the world just tries to appease it. So I would just say, go for it. Don't go along with the crowd. Just say your views, because every other group is saying their views right now. We've got every right to do it. I give massive respect to the guy who was on Newsnight. Anyone see Newsnight this weekend? There was a Christian guy on Newsnight. And I'd never heard a Christian guy on Newsnight tell it how it is. It was the same guy who organised a protest about the Jerry Springer opera. And he just told it how it is, and I was like, did he just say that? A Christian? I was like, wow. Made me want to step up my game. So don't go along with the crowd. Now, next thing is denying the light, like Peter did, pretended he didn't know Jesus. There's sometimes times where we can kind of deny the light. Then we've got letting sin dim our light. Okay, sin will mess up your light. That's why Satan wants us all to sin. And then not explaining our light to others. That's like the whole being salty thing, not telling people about this alliance that you can have with God. So, one of the easiest ways to give the light to other people is this. Wait for it. This will change your life. Tell people you're a Christian. Yeah, you think that was obvious, but I remember when I was 20 years old, it was the age of don't tell people you're a Christian. You must get to know people. This is what everyone said. Get to know people, get in their group, know them really well, and then one day tell them you're a Christian. Now, it don't work. It don't work. When someone you've known for a long time suddenly goes, are you? Really? Then you're like, oh my goodness. It doesn't work. Tell people you're a Christian straight off the bat. Well, I don't mean, hi, I'm Duncan, I'm a Christian. But I mean, just like anyone tells you, oh, I'm a vegetarian, please, you know, I won't eat meat when I come around your house. You know, tell them. You know, I've had to tell people, like, when they invite me around their house, I say, yeah, but I don't bum weed. Because you know that when you go around, it's all going to be around the place. So I say, I'll come round, but I don't want to even smell it. And if that's the case, then we're going to have to meet up in Burger King instead. Right. Matthew 5:16. Let your light shine before men in such a good way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. This is the last verse we're looking at. It doesn't mean show off in front of non-Christians. I could see how people might think that, but that's just not a biblical principle. It doesn't mean try and put on a good show and act all religious in front of non-Christians. But what it does mean is don't hide your light. Okay? Don't hide your light. And the most obvious way to not hide your light is to tell people you're a Christian. And the idea is that when people know you're a Christian, you're letting your light shine. Then, when you do good deeds, not because you're trying to impress them, but just because you're living out the Christian walk, then they will know it's because you're a Christian and they will give glory to God. That's the way it works. The Bible doesn't contradict itself. So Jesus wouldn't be telling us here that we need to be crafty, that we need to be trying to look like really good, righteous people when we're not. And the way we live a righteous life, again, is getting back to the law of the new street. All those things we've been studying since before Christmas, those are the things. Keep looking at those things again and again because it's life-changing stuff. When we live those things out, then we will naturally have good deeds. So, the application for that is tell someone this week you're a Christian. Tell them, and who knows where it might lead. You might end up being a peacemaker and leading them to making an alliance with God. And they owe you their life. So make an effort this week to tell someone who doesn't know you're a Christian that you're a Christian. And it is not silly, okay? It is not silly. It might sound silly when you say, well, I'm a Christian. But to them, it doesn't sound silly at all. People are just like, oh, okay. So don't get tricked into thinking it sounds silly. I've actually found that I'm careful how I say this, as a Christian rapper, and it makes me sound like I'm better than I really am, I have had tremendous respect from people on the street. And I know if I wasn't Christian, I would have no respect at all. Because I'm not a good rapper. You know, I'm not. I can freestyle, I'm not a good rapper. But for some reason, when I go into South Thames College and I play the beats I'm working on, suddenly everyone's like, Duncan, I've got to respect you for chatting about God. They love it. They love it. But me and Shay have to admit that for a long time, we were trying to do the music on a sneaky kind of tip, you know? And in my lyrics, I'd say G-O-D. Because I thought if I say God, then everyone's going to walk out of the club. So I'd say G-O-D, you know? And it's funny because chatting to other musicians, they did the same thing. We've all been through the G-O-D vibe, you know? And then we start realizing it's okay to say God. And it's okay to say Jesus. So we're going to do the summary now. It's Operation Peacemaker, not Peace Sneaker. Okay? Not Peace Sneaker, all right? We got tricked into thinking it said, blessed are the peace sneakers. And we're kind of sneaking around. Shall I let him know I'm a Christian? Nah, give it a few more years. What about this guy? Oh, I don't want to tell them I'm a Christian. Oh, they just said something that is completely blasphemous. I better not say anything because I'll seem like a bigot. And all this kind of stuff. We're sneaking around. Now, check this out. Imagine I've got a bank account with Barclays Bank, okay? And I've gone overdrawn, right? Gone overdrawn. Now, a week later, these bailiffs kick down my door, grab me, start breaking my fingers, start smashing up my house, taking everything out of the... I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, you're overdrawn, mate. I'm like, don't you guys send a letter first? And they're like, we sent a letter. Now, later, when I'm healing in the hospital, I get my solicitor to find out what happened. Turns out, Barclays Bank found out I was overdrawn, and then they told one of their clerks to send me a letter saying, you're going to have your fingers broken, your door kicked down, your house smashed up because you're overdrawn. But if you pay within the week, we won't do that. Now, the clerk thought, that's a bit of an offensive letter. I'm not going to send him that. That will really offend him. So they didn't send me the letter. Now, what do you think? Do you think I would have rather got the offensive letter? Don't worry about thinking the gospel is offensive, because the Bible says it's offensive. That doesn't mean we're offensive in our approach. Doesn't mean we're rude to people. Doesn't mean we preach at people instead of preaching to them, as they say. But it means don't be worried thinking, I can't tell this guy now about Jesus because it will offend him. Because ultimately, he would rather be offended and be with you in heaven than not. And I think sometimes, well, let me just say this first. In part, I owe my salvation to someone not being afraid to offend someone. Because someone offended my mum years ago, and they thought by telling her the gospel in a certain way, and they thought that they'd never have another conversation again with my mum. And now my mum's here, and I'm here. Praise God that that lady didn't care about offending someone. But I think sometimes it's not really that we're worried about offending people. I think sometimes we're worried about looking stupid. And that's why Jesus warned us that we're blessed if people insult us. He's like, even if you do look stupid, Duncan, you're blessed by me. So go ahead and be stupid. So let's look at the pros and cons. The con, right? This is, things that negative points of being peacemakers, telling people about this covenant relationship they can have with God. You might look stupid. Okay? Next thing. People might say stuff about you. Now, all of us have experienced this. You might look stupid, people might say stuff about you. Now, let's look at the pros. Firstly, you're acknowledged by Jesus before the Father. That is big. Next thing, your friends can get into heaven. That is big as well. Your friends getting into heaven. You'll be rewarded if you get a hard time. If people make fun of you, even if you lose your job because of it, which is unlikely in this country, but it is possible, you'll be rewarded by God. Whatever you lose out on is going to be paid back, trust me. So, next one, you're favored by God. You're blessed. Now, if you weigh it up, the pros and the cons, you can see it is better to be a peacemaker. It's definitely better. Okay? Now, lastly, we finish on this verse. Isaiah 52, verse 7. How lovely on the mountains are the feet of him who brings good news, who announces peace and brings good news of happiness, who announces salvation and says to Zion, your God reigns. So let's go around this week and announce peace to people. If you're not feeling salty, go back to the beginning of the chapter. Start studying it, meditating on it. Go to God, confess your sins, weep, mourn, wail about your sins. Go to him humble, and he will restore you. And then you'll be salty again, and then you can start being a peacemaker.